Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to get into just some players individually, some of the big names that are in this World Cup. And we already had talked
We just
about
finished talking about Ronaldo
and Messi. So we've got Lewandowski, who plays for Poland. He has not played well. What do you think?
You know, and it's two different things. You know, he hasn't played well, but then again, he doesn't have the supporting cast that he has in the club or other players do, because we see the same thing with and we're going to talk about him later. Salah, same thing. Are they shining? Salah has scored 2 goals. Lewandowski hasn't scored yet, but his supporting cast is not as big, as his clubs. So, of course, people were hoping that he was going to do better at the World Cup level.
And he plays for Bayern Munich, one of the biggest clubs, so obviously he's got a ton of support.
Yeah, and
there.
of course, they were the champs
Right.
this year. And then we're going to talk about Messi, and only 1 goal scored in the World Cup.
And then he missed the PK versus
Missed the
Iceland.
PK, right? And then, of course, Ronaldo also missed the PK, but he scored 4 goals right now. And then there's a PK that they took away from him because of the VAR, and we'll talk about that one later. Right? And then we have Neymar, who played poorly the first 2 games, right? And maybe in the last game he played a little bit better. I guess maybe they talked to him about, what Brazil needs to do, and then he needs to show up if they want Brazil to win, because he's kind of like a leader. People look up to him. It can't be all about what's going on with him behind the scenes. No, it has to be about what you put up on the field, because that's where it counts. That's where the money comes up. You were talking about how, is he worth 220 million euros?
I don't think so. I think, I mean, I've always said that he's kind of a punk because of his attitude. For example, he was dragged down by the shoulder in one game, and he's holding his face on the ground in agony to try and draw the foul. And I know that people try to do that, but still...
He overdoes it.
Yeah, he way overdoes it. Plus, he had a PK taken away because he was flopping, meaning that, for those of you who don't know, it means he's diving when he didn't even get touched.
Right, so something that they do in basketball a lot.
Right, and a lot of players do it. Some big names do it. Some of the not big so names do it. But he does it so much.
He's a master.
Yeah, and 220 million. That's just an insane amount of money.
And
for him.
and I talked to you about this before. When he was at Santos, he was a big. He was known for flopping a lot. He goes to Barca, signs with Barca, and it seemed like playing for Guardiola took that away a little, And then, of course, even though they got a new coach, Barca still has that mentality of being a fair player. You have some of the best players playing in the team that played at that style, where they don't like to do things like that.
Right.
So for me, for a while, it looked like they were taking that away from him. He was becoming a better player. As soon as he signs up with another team, he's gone. He starts doing it all over again.
Yeah.
It's like he's free to do whatever he wants to do again, and now it's showing up in the World Cup.
Yeah, and I know sometimes you get that with the younger guys when they sign too early, and that could have been the case with him. It just his head just got swelled way too big.
And I've also watched other interviews, other experts talking about him, where he wants to have the attention all the time.
Yeah.
It's not about what happens to Brazil; it's about what's happening with Neymar.
Yeah.
And he wants that attention all the time, and it's not about him. He's not at the Ronaldo, Messi level yet.
No.
He has to prove himself before he can say that. He's a great player. Don't get me wrong. He's got a lot of talent, and he can carry Brazil to the finals if he really puts up, his talent up there. But he's right now. He has to show up and do what he's supposed to do and stop, doing other things where, it takes away from the World Cup,
Right.
Especially from his team. Because you see all the talent, all the other players, they just want to win.
Yeah.
Look at Coutinho, look at Paulinho, he knows this is probably his only chance at a World Cup, and he got a great goal on the last game.
Yeah.
So all these players, they want to win, they want to go to the World Cup. They feel bad that Brazil had a second hosting of the World Cup and again a second loss in the World Cup. So they want to win. They're hungry for winning the World Cup. And Neymar has to be one of those players that steps up, is a leader, and takes Brazil to the next level, which is something that it looks like it's starting to show, because we saw it on the last game. He played a lot better than the previous 2 games. So maybe something is, people are talking to him, they're letting him know that, hey, we need you. We can't have you doing all these other things. You need to be, part of our team, our nation.
Right.
Everybody in Brazil is looking up to you to help us, right?
Right. Okay, so we're going to move on to our next player, Lukaku, Man U fan. I'm glad he's doing well. Just in 2 games, he scored 4 goals. He's looking quick. He's looking strong. So hopefully against England, against all of his players that he plays with week in and week out, it's going to be interesting to see how that game goes and if he can add up a few more goals there.
And his strength is just showing in the World Cup.
Yeah.
I mean, he hasn't slowed down one bit.
Nope.
And
And-
it's like the EPL league just kept going.
Yeah, and he was hurt, don't forget,
Right.
for those last few games of the EPL, so maybe that rest helped him for this World Cup.
Yeah, because he showed up.
Yeah, yeah.
Big time. All right, next we're going to Kane. Okay, 5 goals in 2 games, and of course, the last one should not have had that
Shouldn't
goal.
be his,
Shouldn't be
in
his.
my opinion.
Yeah, we talked about this. We
Yeah.
discussed about is it deflection? Should it go in? And my point was, well, maybe if he didn't hit him, it would have gone out or not going into the goal. So, it's one of those that, well, I guess, they're saying he had the last touch, so they're going to give it to him. But you're thinking doesn't deserve that one.
Well, yeah, because one, he's going away from the goal. He's not even looking at the goal. He's not even looking at the ball because he knows he's offside. And one of his players takes the shot and it hits the back of his heel. And
Right.
somehow
It
the
just goes in.
goalie couldn't get it, and so it ends up going in. And so they give him the goal.
Talk about being a lucky player in the
Yeah.
World Cup, because
Yeah.
talk about this, 5 goals in 2
2
games,
games.
That's as many goals that sometimes the leading World Cup scorer has
Right.
scored in one World Cup, 5 or
Right.
6 goals.
If he goes on to win the Golden Boot by 1 goal, that's the 1 goal.
Exactly. So, we'll see what happens
See
with
what he
him.
does as time goes on. Okay, then we've got Diego Costa. This guy is a beast. He's got 3 goals. In just 2 games, he had 3 goals. So yeah, he didn't score in that last one. But he is just and I've always felt like he's a brute. I didn't
Yeah.
like him when Chelsea got him,
Right.
obviously because he's got to play against Man U. But, he can score, and he's good.
He's kind of like a Lukaku, but without that speed. He's a
Yeah,
little bit
yeah.
slower than Lukaku, but he's as big as Lukaku and he's as strong as him. So
Yeah.
he's just somebody that, gets people out of the way. He's like a bulldozer coming through with the ball.
Yeah.
And that's how he scores. And next, we're going to talk about, a player that not just his nation was hoping for a great World Cup for him, but the entire world, especially if you're an EPL,
Yeah.
fan.
Yeah.
Everybody was looking for Salah to have a better World Cup. We talked about this before. I guess even I said this before. Maybe I don't know if I would. Now that I think about it, I should have changed my mind and not said that. But I think he should have played that first game.
Yeah.
I mean, I know he was hurt and he was been injured right before the World Cup, but it's 3 games.
Right.
It's 3 games and that's all you get.
Right.
If you lose 2 games, you're out. The last game is just, it's just
Yeah.
to show up, but that's it. And of course, he scored on that game, but still, he might have made a difference on the first game,
Yeah.
which is the loss that just cost him the World Cup.
Yeah, and there was actually a report that he's considering retiring from the national team.
Right,
He's
which is-
only 25, 26. That's
Yeah,
way
he's
too
too
early.
young. I think maybe the pressure has gotten into him. I think he wants to concentrate on club playing. But I think the fans are going to want him back because, it's your national team. This is a tournament that you play for your nation. You're not playing for your club.
Right.
You're not getting paid for it, or if you are, you don't get a lot of pay. You do that with your club team. That's where your money comes from.
Right.
So this is more about honor,
Yeah.
about representing where you come from.
Right.
Showing that your country has talent also, not just these other big countries.
Right.
And and we haven't had someone as big as him coming from Egypt in a
Right.
long time.
Right.
Egypt hasn't been in the World Cup in a while too.
Right.
So this was, people had big hopes for him, but you can't expect him to do everything.
And we try to use that kind of analogy with our boys and our girls that we're coaching here at the high school. That
Right.
they complain they don't necessarily want to play for the high school because it's all about club in soccer.
Right,
But
which is, in some ways, I understand it because sometimes nowadays, that's where some of the colleges go to see and recruit.
Most of them are going to get recruited straight out of their club, not in high school.
Right, but in high school, you got 4 years.
Yeah.
You're representing the school that you're going to.
Right.
So
You should have a little bit of pride in it, at
Right.
least. So our last person that we want to just kind of touch on is Pogba, another Man U player. To me, he's played well below average. And the thing is everybody all year has talked about him playing in that same system that he played in Juventus, where it's a 3 midfield system, and it suits him the best. Okay, so that's what France had him in, and he's still not performing quite the way that he should. And again, this guy, $98 million for this guy. And in my opinion, you're going to get paid that much, you should be able to play in any system, in any position. You know, maybe not if you're a field player, play goalie,
right.
But any other position, it shouldn't have to, you shouldn't be getting that kind of complaints from people saying, well, he would play better if he was in this system, or he played better if he was in that system. He should, if he's that good, he should be able to play in whatever system is put out there.
Right. But then there's also that mentality of, well, you know, sometimes a player has played a certain system, so they're used to it. They were talking about that with Mexico and the national team, how the reason they were able to beat Germany is because Osorio had 48 games before the World Cup, and every single game was a different formation or a different player. So once he played on the first game against Germany, he played the players where they usually normally play, and they just worked the system around that. The players were able to shine and show up. And maybe that's what people are looking at when they talk about him. But you're right, you know, there's no reason for him not to shine in any position.
Yeah.
So, moving on to our next topic, 6 own goals and only 3 red cards. What do you think about that?
I think that's a lot of own goals. Okay, and for those of you who don't know, own goals means if I am playing for England and someone takes a shot and I accidentally kick it in my own net, that's an own goal.
Right.
Okay, so even though the other team gets the goal, I would be the one that would go down as an own goal. So we don't ever want that. And so 6 own goals in just the group stage is a lot.
But then a lot of the times also it takes a toll on the player.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know if you saw the Mexican player when they lost that game to Sweden. The kid was crying, and you know, all the players, all his teammates are trying to console the player because he just felt bad.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, sometimes that's part of the game.
Yeah.
You can't help that. You know, it happens.
Right.
It happened to me.
It's happened to me.
So, you know, it's something that can happen to anybody.
Yeah.
You know.
And then 3 red cards, that's good, you know,
Right.
that there's only been 3 in all those games. And hopefully it will continue that way and we won't have, and 2 of those actually were 2 yellows. So if you get, so if you get 2 yellows, you get a red. So that was good that really there's not been super vicious type fouls.
And one of them, which was one of them, was
straight red
to the Colombian player, which to me was an instinct thing where he's trying to block a goal,
Right.
and it just happens that his arm goes out, and of course, you know, you're putting your arm out and the ball hits you, it's going to be a PK. You're the last player, it's going to be a red card
Right,
too.
right.
So, you know, it's not like it's been, you know, where somebody goes out and just takes out another player.
Yeah,
Which is
yeah.
great. Which takes us to the next topic, which is we don't know if this is the result, but people who are in favor of this are going to say, well, see, we only got 3 red cards.
Exactly.
So,
So we've got our VAR, okay, which is the instant replay for all of us Americans that have been watching football and basketball for so long. Okay, so soccer's just now starting to do this where they're starting to replay. They're stopping the game and then the referee's going and looking at a video and then they're figuring it out. And for the most part, it's been fairly okay until recently, in my opinion. So here's one example. Sweden versus South Korea. In the first half, they didn't even review the PK that Sweden should have easily gotten. They just did not even review it. So you wonder, well, why are you bringing it in if you're not going to use it?
And that was my problem with it too. When I talked to you and gave you my opinion on this, one of the reasons I don't like it, one, it slows down the game, which is, you know, soccer, it's not like any American sport where you keep stopping the clock every few minutes whenever the ball goes out of bounds or whatever. But 2, you know, you need to have some rules.
Yeah.
And it seems like they have rules, but they're not consistent.
Right.
Because, well, when do I use it? When does the ref say, okay, I'm going to use it, or I'm going to check to see if we should use it? Who has the final word? Aren't you the referee on the field that should get the final word? Why do you have to wait for them to say, okay, we're looking at the screen, at the monitor, and then you should see whether it's a PK or not.
Right.
So, and that's the problem that I have with this. It's because there's no consistency.
Right.
And me and you were talking about this before. Is there isn't one. I mean, there's no consistency. You know, sometimes you have a PK that should have been a PK, and they review it and they give it to them.
Right.
And sometimes there's a PK that wasn't a PK, and they review it, and okay, they called it back. It's not okay. That's good. But then you get the ones where they don't use it, and then you're going, well, it looks like they should have used it because it looks legitimate like a PK. So what's going on?
Right.
Who makes that decision?
Right.
And that's what's really killing this. You know, if the rules have to change. In my opinion, it's something that shouldn't happen in soccer. But of course, you know, different people, different opinions. So.
Yeah.
So then we go to Neymar, who again with the VAR, he dove during the Croatia game, and the VAR was not.
No, it worked.
Or it worked that time. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, that one it did work. They took away, or they didn't give him the PK because
Right.
they knew that he was flopping. And it's a good thing because you knew that Neymar tends to do things like that.
Right.
So of course they used it, and it didn't work for him.
And then another example we have is Senegal versus Poland. Now this was really interesting. The referee gave Senegal an advantage by bringing on a Senegal player who had gotten hurt, and he had to step off. Okay, and they brought him on at a time where the attack was in his favor, and so he comes on the sideline at midfield and just takes the ball and gets this breakaway and scores the goal. Okay, which you're saying to yourself, okay, the VAR should have been reviewing this because clearly the referee shouldn't have let him on in that advantage. Normally the referee won't let the player back on the field if it's going to give his team an advantage, and it did in this.
Right. And again, going back to the same thing, when you use it, and that's
Right.
the problem. Who makes that final decision where to use it or not? And they're saying, well, you know, the people upstairs are the help, but you know, who makes that final decision?
Right.
Is it the ref, or is it the guys upstairs, you know, watching the monitors, or what? You know. So next we move on to the next one, England versus Tunisia. And what the heck was Kyle Walker doing with that elbow?
Kyle
what was
Walker.
he thinking?
It must be because he's a Man City player and they are taught not to think. Pep just says, no, this is what you're doing and you're not supposed to think. Oh, but again, in this one, the VAR worked. They
Exactly.
used it and he was able to get.
And they made the right decision, and they were able to use it, and it worked for them in their
Right.
favor.
So overall, for me, the VAR has awarded up to this point, okay, 3 penalties that I believe were wrong. 2 of them were handballs that should not have been handballs, because this is the big question we have about is it ball to hand or is it hand to ball? Okay, now for those of you who don't know, ball to hand would be if you're not even looking at it and your hand's like here and someone kicks the ball and it hits you in the arm inside the 18-yard box. Okay, whereas if someone kicks you like the Colombia player who reached out to try and stop it,
Right.
that would be a hand to ball.
Right.
So,
But then you had those headers where they
Yes.
headed the ball, and he rolls down and he hits their arm, and one was called,
Right.
and one wasn't
one
called,
wasn't.
and it's the exact same type of play.
Exact same thing.
You know, so where do you draw the line? How do you decide which one works, or which one should be reviewed and which one shouldn't be reviewed?
yeah.
So-
So, and then the handball thing has always been an issue, and we tried to get our coach Jimmy, our referee, to let us know he was unavailable, and so I'm interested in seeing how the rest of this tournament goes to see if they're going to try to straighten up this handball situation. There was also another situation where Sweden should have had a PK in that Germany game.
Right.
It clearly, they show it on the screen, but they never went to the VAR to review it.
Right.
So again, you have to ask the question, what is going on with the referees? From game to game to game, they need to be consistent.
Right. And times where they're showing the replay on the screen at the stadium, and they're not reviewing it.
Yeah.
And the fans are getting mad because they're saying, well, why aren't they reviewing this one? You know, so why are you even playing it on the big screen if you're not going to review it and all the fans are going to get mad? You're going to cause some problems in the stadium.
Exactly.
You know, especially if it's the home team or the team with the most fans.
Right.
Because you're showing something and then people are going, well, maybe this should be reviewed. Why isn't it being reviewed?
Yeah.
You know, and so those are the problems that you get with the VAR.
So all of those out there that are, you know, in charge of the VAR, maybe you should watch our show and maybe you should take some points from what we're saying.
And maybe you should think about not just, you know, setting up better rules, but also have a bigger, you know, a meeting with all the refs so everybody knows and at least follows the same protocol.
Exactly.
You know,
exactly. More
because you're
consistency.
seeing different refs calling different things. You know, we have one game that was interrupted like 4 times on the VAR.
Right.
You know, where somebody else who should have reviewed others never went to the VAR.
Yeah. It's
So it's, you know, up for grabs. You make your decision. All right, and so finally, this is the last thing that we want to talk about as far as, well, the World Cup goes is, you know, that third game on that first round. You know,
I hate this. I hate
we
this.
understand that they have to play at the same time because you know you want everybody to play. Don't just play for the tie.
Right.
But the problem that we have is we want to watch every single game. You know, with today's technology, you're able to record the game and watch the other game that's playing at the same time. So you can watch it later, review it, and, you know, do everything you want. But you want to watch that game.
Right.
You can't do that.
Yeah, if they're showing both games at the same time and they're telling and putting up a graphic of what's going on in the other game, it makes it difficult to try and avoid seeing that.
And it doesn't happen just with in America, at least. It
Right.
doesn't just happen in the English version. The
Right.
Spanish team or the Spanish networks are doing the same thing, you know.
Yeah,
And they're showing it on both because you can go back to another channel and change it if you want. But what if you want to watch it now and then you want to watch the other one after that?
Exactly.
You can because they're already giving you the score or who's scoring or who's
Exactly.
ahead. You know, you saw that in Mexico when they were losing with Sweden.
Yeah.
You know, the fans already knew when Korea scored because, you know, they got the results.
Right, right. And, you know, for me, what I was doing when I was watching, when I had both games on the DVR and they were both over, and so I picked one that I want to start watching, and then they're showing these other scores, and I'm trying to avoid looking at it, I'm trying to avoid listening to it. So then when I go to watch that other game, because I already know the score, I'm starting to fast forward through some of the game and waiting to see if there's some controversy or if there's a goal scored or whatever to be more exciting because I already know the outcome of the game. So all of you people that are in charge of these networks, you need to think about this because the true soccer fans don't necessarily want to know what's happening in the other game at that time.
Right.
You know, I mean, that's the one thing. Okay, let's take American football.
Right.
They don't ever show those playoff games
Right.
simultaneously.
Right.
You know, there's always one in the morning and then one in the afternoon. There's no reason why they can't. I understand you want to do it in the same day so that everybody ends at the same time.
Right.
Because if you advance out of the group stage, you want to be able to have the same amount of equal rest time for your teams.
And also, you know, I'm thinking the networks are thinking, well, you know, if we show one game first and then the second game later, you know, that they're not going to have the same ratings if the other team's playing for a tie.
Right.
But what do you think is going to happen if you're giving out the scores anyway?
Exactly.
Nobody's going to watch it. I mean, if we really wanted to know, you know, technology has changed. We have our phones. We can just look at it. If we wanted to know how the other game's doing, we could just look at it and say, okay, I don't have to watch that other game.
Right.
But we want to watch that game.
Right.
And we don't want to, me and you said, talk about how we turn our phones off because
Yeah.
we want to make sure that we watch that other game without knowing the score right away.
Right. And there's enough time in the day where they could easily play those games in the same day. You could play
Right.
one in the morning, you can play one in the evening, so at least you're given enough time
Right.
if you don't want to play it separate days.
So
Basically, that's most of our show.
next show we'll be talking about.
We're gonna talk about the Tournament of Champions, July 26th, 29th, and August 2nd. This
And that's
is
for the women.
where the U.S. women are in. So please watch those, since we won't have a show before that. But we were going to talk about that. So make sure that you watch that.
And unfortunately, because it's World Cup time, dedicated this show to mostly the World Cup.
Right.
But of course, we got other topics that we're going to talk about,
Yeah.
especially Arsenal signing Leno. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, the most expensive goalkeeper for them. So
Right.
that's going to be interesting. So we're really happy that you guys got to join us today. We hope you're enjoying the World Cup as we are, and we look forward to seeing what this round of 16 quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals are going to be. Or if you remember back in our first show when we made our picks, I picked Germany and Spain in the finals.
Right.
So Germany's already out of it. So Spain is the only one, I guess, that could go for it at this
You
point.
have the Spain and Brazil, or was it France and Brazil?
You have Spain and Brazil, so
Yeah,
both
so
your
they're
teams
still
are
in
still
there.
in it. So
And they're both still looking strong, but it's going to be a tough road
it's
to
gonna
get to
be a
the
tough
final.
road.
So we'll see what happens. I hope you guys enjoy.
Yeah,
our show
and don't
today.
forget, hit the notification because it's going to be a good month until our next show.
Okay, so enjoy the rest of the World Cup, and I hope you enjoy our show. Until next time.